My name is Dean Schramm, and I am the Regional President of the American Jewish Committee, Los Angeles. I would like to welcome you all this evening to our 34th Annual Learned Hand Dinner. And I want to extend our greatest appreciation to this evening's worthy honoree, Joe Calabrese, and to his family. And to those participating in this evening's program, Jim Burke, the Reverend Susan Klein, the Honorable Alejandro Mayorkas, and Charles Rivkin. Not only was Judge Learned Hand one of our country's finest jurists, a champion of individual rights and democratic values, he also wrote quite extensively, and as usual, thoughtfully, outside the four corners of judicial opinions. In addressing the American Jewish Committee on January 29, 1955, he said, "Man's reward is not so much in the work as in its making, not so much in the prize as in the race. We may win when we lose, if we have done what we can, for by doing so we have made real at least some part of that finished product in whose fabrication we are most concerned ourselves." Reduced to its essence, I believe Judge Hand was saying that meaning for each of us is derived by fighting the good fight. That is what Joe Calabrese does every day for his clients in our community and why we honor him tonight. And that is what AJC does every day as well. We fight against bigotry and hatred directed at the Jewish people, but we do so by giving expression to the values Judaism teaches and fighting against bigotry and hatred directed against any people. As a concrete illustration of what AJC does, I want to begin this evening with a special acknowledgement of 3 AJC members who are terrific lawyers and 2 UCLA undergraduate students, perhaps future members of the legal profession, who recently have fought the good fight and which was very much in the news. Just 6 weeks ago, and during midterm examinations no less, a UCLA student organization called Students for Justice in Palestine, or SJP, filed an action before UCLA's undergraduate judicial board against UCLA undergraduate students and then student council members Lauren Rogers and Sunny Singh. Lauren had taken an educational trip to Israel for California student leaders sponsored by Project Interchange and Educational Institute of AJC. Participants on all Project Interchange seminars are introduced to Israeli leaders, including Arab Israelis, in the fields of politics, religion, business, and the arts, and they meet with Palestinian political leaders as well in the West Bank. The purpose of any Project Interchange seminar is to expose its participants to the region's richness and its complexities so that each of them has an informed view. Sunny had taken a trip to Israel sponsored by the Anti-Defamation League. Not long after their return, SJP introduced a resolution before the Student Council calling on the UCLA administration to divest from certain companies doing business in Israel. After an 11-hour hearing, the resolution was voted down 7-5. Lauren and Sunny's views in opposition to the resolution were made known during the hearing. Immediately thereafter, Lauren and Sunny became the subjects of harassment and intimidation by students supportive of the resolution, including through social media attacks, to the point that Lauren took herself off various social media sites. In the action before the UCLA Judicial Board, SJP claimed that Lauren and Sunny had a conflict of interest when voting on the divestment resolution simply because they had taken trips to Israel sponsored by Jewish organizations, that they should have disclosed these trips and recused themselves, and that the vote on divestment should be nullified. Upon learning that a student had taken a Project Interchange trip was the subject of this action, AJC responded and referred pro bono legal counsel to Lauren. Referred were 3 of the finest lawyers in Los Angeles, plus me. They are Marshall Grossman, Frederick Levin, and Honey Amato. This UCLA judicial proceeding constituted a mini-trial with opening and closing statements and directed cross-examination of witnesses. The team had 2 weeks to prepare. A variety of Lauren's constitutional rights were implicated: freedom of speech, freedom to travel, due or fair process rights in what constituted an administrative or quasi-administrative proceeding potentially subject to review in state or federal court. Motions and briefs needed to be drafted, as did exhibit and witness lists. And on top of it, the rules provided that no actual lawyers could represent Lauren at the hearing, although an undergraduate student representative could and did. His name is Ian Cockcroft, and he was terrific. Of course, Lauren and Ian needed to be prepared as well for what was to become a 5-hour hearing before the Judicial Board, at the end of which the matter was taken under advisement. The day after the hearing, UCLA Chancellor Gene Block and UC President Janet Napolitano both issued statements. President Napolitano wrote the following: "I share Chancellor Block's concerns about students at UCLA who target any student seeking to participate in student government who has a relationship with or wants to travel to Israel on trips sponsored by certain groups. At the University of California, freedom of speech is a highly valued principle, yet other principles are also highly valued, including the principles of civility, respect, and inclusion, and should also govern our campuses. The actions of those students at UCLA violate these principles. I am pleased to report that the UCLA Judicial Board agreed with President Napolitano and ruled 4-0 in Lauren and Sonny's favor." Lauren has shown great courage throughout this ordeal, and as part of the legal team who represented her, I know I can say on their behalf that we were privileged to stand with Lauren to fight the good fight. I want to introduce the team to you now. When I call your name, please stand. Frederick Levin. And Frederick's team from Buckley Sandler: Jessica Tulk, Dustin Linden, Cecilia Kawunka, and Brett Natarelli. Cecilia and Brett could not be here, but the Buckley Sandler team. Marshall Grossman of the Orrick firm. Marshall was fantastic. Honey Amato, a terrific appellate lawyer who wrote the briefs. There's Honey. Lauren's student representative, Ian Cockcroft. Where's Ian? Ian is going to make a heck of a lawyer one day. And Lauren Rogers, who represented herself during the hearing and was the subject of it. Unable to be here this evening, but I want to acknowledge them, are Bob Pekar, who is a terrific lawyer also, and flew from New Jersey to Los Angeles to be a witness at the hearing. Bob was the immediate past president of Project Interchange. I also want to acknowledge Myra Clark-Siegel, who was the head of communication, is the head of communications for Project Interchange. And finally, Rabbi Mark Diamond, regional director of AJCLA, for his outstanding efforts in supporting Lauren throughout. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what AJC does.
Please welcome this evening's Master of Ceremonies, Jim Burke, CEO of Participant Media.
Good evening. Good evening. There we go. So you can bring the lights back down to the way you wanted them. I'm not going to be that demanding tonight. Actually, you can bring the lights down on stage so you can't see me. That would even be better. I said to my wife before I came up here, Jane was over at the table right here, and I said, excited about being the Master of Ceremonies, and she said, no, I'm really excited about the challah. So I guess shows you what her priorities are. But listen, welcome everybody to the Learned Hand Awards dinner, and thank you to Dean Schramm for all that you do. I think you deserve a real round of applause. You know, Dean and I actually go back a little bit. We worked together back in, I think it was 2017, for a documentary called Darfur Now, which looked at the devastating tragedy that was unfolding in Sudan. And really, we really got a chance to connect at that point and realize that there was so much about his life and the work that we try to do at Participant that is in alignment, which is really about a world of peace and sustainability. And for the past 10 years, Participant has produced over 50 films, along with television and digital content, all dedicated to inspiring social change. Now, Participant shares AJC's view that the best way to protect populations in danger is to work towards a world in which all people are accorded respect and dignity. But enough about Participant. Tonight, I have the privilege of serving as the MC as we recognize my dear friend, Joe Calabrese, for his commitment to civic and community in the city of Los Angeles. And when he first told me of this honor, I immediately thought, who better to receive an honor from the American Jewish Committee? You know, think about it. When you think American Jew, you know, who else but Joe Calabrese from O'Melveny and Myers, and that's M-Y-E-R-S, not M-E-Y-E-R-S, right, would come to mind. Not Steve Sharp, you know, nobody else. Joe Calabrese. I can tell you one thing, nobody at my temple looks like Joe. They did, there'd be a lot more converts in my temple. But I do want to thank Joe for asking me to MC the event tonight. Something is fun, group of lawyers, this is really exciting, and other people who care very much about the issues that this organization represents. And more important, I'm the guy who gets to introduce the more important friends who get to speak about him. So thanks, Joe. I'm kind of like the guy at the wedding party who just found out he's the usher, not the best man. So really appreciate it. But that's okay, because I'm the one who's here tonight. Just remember that, Joe, right? I don't see any of your other fancy friends. I don't see Thomas Tull in the room, right? You know, I don't see Jeff Shell, Ron Meyer, you know. Harvey Weinstein still got his ass in New York, you know, he's not here. He didn't even send a video, nothing, right? I don't even see any of the older cockers from the Golden Globes, none of them here, right? So just remember who your real friend is tonight, putting himself on the line, right? So that, Joe, is your first lesson of the evening. That's called Jewish guilt, all right? So, you got to embrace it. It makes you stronger. But Joe and I have known each other for a long time. We go back about 9 years, and when I first took the helm of Participant, and the firm that he's a part of, O'Melveny Myers, represents Participant. But what distinguishes Joe from most others is that he truly commits to the client relationship, and it really is what makes him special. His selfishness and compromises that he makes in his own personal life to service his clients exemplifies the highest achievements and standards for his profession. To show you what I mean, I've curated a short photographic presentation to articulate the professionalism in which Joe approaches his job. So I want you to pay attention, and many of you in the audience who are struggling to be Joe Calabrese, you will learn the secrets to his success. Now, as you can see here, Joe looks for opportunities to bring his clients together. He represents the Golden Globes, his firm represents Participant, and he was willing to give up a night to go to the Golden Globes with my wife and me. I mean, that's dedication. How many people would really do that? Or Joe wants to have representation nearby at all times in case there's a deal to be done. In this case, he gave up another evening to go to the Academy Awards with us. I mean, come on, how many people in this room would be willing to do that? You know, Joe never wants me to be alone. Doesn't matter if it's the Kings, Lakers, Clippers, traveling to an all-star NBA game. Doesn't matter, anywhere across the country. He's willing to make that sacrifice so that I, his client, has a wingman. That's extraordinary self-sacrifice. He's always looking out for my safety. When he heard there was a boat party in Cannes, he was the first to arrive to make sure that I wouldn't fall overboard. And not only that, knowing that this was an important evening for us, he brought his Patriot in Arms, Chris Brereton, to tag team to make sure that until 5 in the morning when they left, that I was going to be okay. That's team spirit, that's collaboration, that's partnership, that's Joe. Joe always wants his clients to get the most out of any engagement, like traveling to Santa Fe just to make sure that I fully experience every moment. And when I'm bored, as you can see there, he's so sensitive he ignores me and fully experiences it for himself and documents it in case I might want to see it later. Joe constantly worries about my health and is always ensuring that I'm properly lubricated. You can just imagine how important this is in a place like Napa because it's so dry. So it's important that I have somebody like Joe by my side. And just like they say, when the cabin pressure drops, put your mask on first and then help others. As you can see, Joe follows this rule and ensures that he is properly lubricated at all times. Now, Joe believes that serving the client is a team sport. And when my family wants to go on a private vacation alone, Joe says, absolutely not. We're coming with you. And not only does he insist, he brings his family. And here's the best part. He only billed me about 8 hours a day, even though we were at the pool, about 10 hours in the bar, another 4 hours. That's Joe, only 8 hours. Is he a mensch or what? I mean, amazing. And as many of you know, Joe is a spiritual man, and he wants his clients to benefit from it. For example, he insisted we go to Sedona and hike to the top of a mountain so he could conduct what he described as an ancient client blessing, which involved me waiting for him to pile up little rocks while he sang songs from the 60s. But lastly, Joe wants his clients to feel young and energetic and optimistic and empowered. So with the help of his wife, Margot, he always makes sure that you behave in a way that is not so professional. It's a bit of a cross between Will Ferrell and Old School and Jim Belushi in Animal House. But as you can see, that's our Joe. So Joe is well-deserving. He's very well-deserving of tonight's honor, but he's been recognized by a lot of organizations and a lot of people, and for his outstanding impact over the years. And so we all in this room have to ask ourselves, why is this night different than any other night? Joe, that's an inside joke. You don't even try to figure it out if you won't get it. But Joe, I'm going to tell you why. I think tonight is sort of your bar mitzvah, in that you receive this award in the eyes of AJC, you will become a man. But Joe, as a bar mitzvah, you must remember the golden rule. You have to write a thank you note to everyone who wrote a check tonight on your behalf. And until this is done, you don't get to play with your award. So I can see Joe smiling politely and laughing, and it's clear he has no idea what I'm talking about. He has no references. He doesn't understand this at all. Good. But that tells me it's going to be a long night. So let's get started. And one of Joe's other admirers, who knows a bit about civic engagement, is the Honorable Senator Tim Kaine from the state of Virginia. Senator Kaine wasn't able to attend in person tonight, but he sent a special message. Please direct your attention to the video monitor.
Hi, I'm Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia, and I am here to give a greeting and welcome to AJC Los Angeles, and especially to my friend Joe Calabrese, who tonight is the recipient of the prestigious Judge Learned Hand Award given by AJC to an attorney who has an outstanding philanthropic and human rights record. I wish I could be with you. Joe invited me, but we voted today, and I'm going to my son's college graduation in Minnesota tomorrow, and I live in Virginia, so I would have had to have a supersonic transport to get out there, but I wanted to come because Joe is such a great friend. He and Margot both are wonderful people, and this is an important award. Learned Hand was one of the most eminent jurists in the United States, probably the most eminent jurist who never served on the United States Supreme Court. And he was well known both as a lawmaker, a law applier, but also as a great humanist and philanthropist. And Joe fits in that tradition. He's been so deeply involved in civic and philanthropic activities, both in the broader Los Angeles community, but also as part of a strong civic firm in Albany and Myers. Joe has a particular passion recently for items such as immigration reform and education reform, making sure that our youngest minds have opportunities to succeed. These are passions that are dear to my heart and that are necessary both for individuals and a successful nation. So at AJC, you do a lot of good work. I've been the beneficiary of AJC's help in Virginia as a mayor and governor, traveling to Israel, often with AJC support. I know the great work the organization does, and I know you take seriously giving awards such as this, and you couldn't pick better for 2014 than Joe Calabrese. Thanks, and everybody have a great night.
Joe's faith has always guided his public and private life, and our next speaker, Reverend Susan Klein from St. Albans Church in Westwood, has counseled Joe in matters of faith over the last decade. Reverend Klein, who has been the rector of St. Albans for a decade, was one of the first women ordained in the Episcopal Church. She's led congregations across Southern California, in Irvine and Malibu, as well as Westwood, and is a volunteer chaplain at the Century Regional Detention Facility in Linwood, the main women's jail in Los Angeles County, and she serves as an environmental consultant to the City of Los Angeles. Here to deliver tonight's invocation, I'm proud to welcome Reverend Susan Klein.
Well, I do have the feeling that maybe after tonight, Joe, you might need to make a confession. I'll see you afterwards. Will you pray with me? Let us have a moment of silence as we open our spirits, our minds, and hearts to what is most real for each of us. Tonight we remember the words of the psalmist. No good thing will the Lord withhold from those who walk with integrity. We thank you, God, for the people in this world who walk with integrity, for Learned Hand and all who uphold the standards of justice in the demanding, truth-seeking administration of the law. We thank you tonight for Joe Calabrese and all who have been honored with this award. May they continue to flourish in an age which is cynical, in a society whose convictions are manipulated by self-serving interests. Tonight we also remember the words of the prophet, do justice, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. Oh God, make us hungry for the bread of truth, thirsty for the tears of compassion. Give us a sense of outrage at exclusion, oppression, and injustice. Give us courage to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, and to swim upstream when we must, risking popularity when our cause is just. Give us a merciful spirit, a generous spirit, that we may tend to the wounds of those who are exploited. In all things, make us wise enough to be foolish, and foolish enough to seek wisdom, because we need these gifts to be humble, to become the change we want to see in the world around us. Oh God, we are one with you when we are one with love. We are one with you when we share love with one another. We are one with you when we are united with your purposes for the whole human family. Holy One, move within and among us this night to strengthen us for service. All this we ask through your name of love. Amen.
Amen.
Please welcome Rabbi Mark Diamond, Regional Director of AJC Los Angeles.
Reverend Klein, thank you for your inspiring words. Well, Joe, this is a lot more fun than I had at my bar mitzvah. I didn't have a minister giving me invocation. The challah was much smaller. Didn't have Jim cracking jokes. This is going to be a wonderful evening. Friends, tonight we are proud to honor Joe with AJC's Learned Hand Award. Named in memory of Judge Learned Hand, this award is given to outstanding members of the legal profession who have played a significant role in the betterment of our society. We do have several former Learned Hand honorees with us tonight. I would ask them to stand and be recognized as a group. Lisa Specht, Marshall Grossman, Morgan Chu, Jerome Cohen, Bruce Raymer, and Alan V. Friedman. Would you stand and be recognized? As well, we are honored by the presence of Los Angeles City Controller Ron Gelbern and two national, where's Ron? Is he here? He was here earlier. And two national leaders of AJC, Michael Tigner, Chair of the Regional Offices Committee, and Dan Elbaum, Assistant Executive Director and Director of Regions. Would you stand and be recognized, please? But friends, since its founding in 1906, the American Jewish Committee has pursued justice by securing the civil, human, and religious rights not only of Jews, but of all Americans. AJC filed its first amicus brief in the U.S. Supreme Court in 1923. Since that time, AJC has been involved in most of the landmark civil rights and religious rights cases in American jurisprudence. These cases have addressed issues of separation of church and state, discrimination in employment, education and housing, discrimination based on race, religion, gender, and sexual orientation, women's reproductive rights, and immigration and asylum rights. Whatever the pressing issues of the day have been, AJC has been there to make sure our voice is heard in the legal process. Ladies and gentlemen, I flew in this morning from Washington, D.C., where I attended a reunion of Latino alumni of AJC's Project Interchange, which Dean spoke about a few moments ago. 24 hours ago, we concluded that conference with a memorable reception at the Supreme Court hosted by Justice Sonia Sotomayor, herself a Project Interchange alumna. Justice Sotomayor is an eloquent and inspiring speaker who makes me so proud to be an American. My visit to the Supreme Court was a poignant reminder of our democracy's commitment to the rule of law. To that end, I returned to Los Angeles with a legal quiz for all of you. 3 questions. First, the aforementioned AJC amicus brief filed in 1923. That Supreme Court case involved a challenge to a KKK-inspired statute aimed at Catholic parochial schools, which required all students, the statute required all students to enroll their children in public schools or risk criminal prosecution. Okay, show your support for the right answer by your applause. Is it A, Pierce versus Society of Sisters of the Holy Name of Jesus and Mary? B, Ku Klux Klan versus Board of Education? C, McCollum versus Board of Education? All right, I got a few applauses for the wrong answer. The correct answer, of course, is A. I love this name. Pierce versus Society of Sisters of the Holy Name of Jesus and Mary. I love saying that. AJC led a great victory for religious freedom when the Supreme Court unanimously struck down that law, ruling that parents have a right to determine when and where their children are to be educated. Second question, which is certainly a softball for this crowd. What was the landmark 1954 U.S. Supreme Court case in which the court declared state laws establishing separate public schools for black and white children unconstitutional? We don't really need to go through this, do we? We all know it was B, Brown versus Board of Education, of course. As a result of Brown versus Board, racial segregation was ruled a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. In addition to filing an amicus brief, AJC sponsored research cited by the Supreme Court in its opinion, as it concluded, and I quote, "In the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place." Last question. Let us fast forward to the present day and change the venue from the U.S. Supreme Court to the Appellate Division of the California Superior Court. In 2014, AJC filed an amicus brief in which the California court ultimately upheld the conviction of 10 individuals who repeatedly interrupted Israeli Ambassador Michael Warren when he spoke at UC Irvine in February 2010. His speech was curtailed to 12 minutes rather than the planned hour-long appearance. The hecklers had violated a California statute that bans anyone from willfully disturbing or breaking up a lawful assembly. Is it A, State versus Werner? Applause. B, State versus Said? C, State versus Wickland. You're right, it's B, State versus Said. The brief was written by someone sitting at my own table, our own AJC Los Angeles board member, Honey Kessler Amato. As to the convictions, Honey wrote, and I quote, "The California Supreme Court has stated that the guarantee of free speech does not guarantee immunity from liability for those who abuse it." Good friends, 60 years ago, the Los Angeles chapter of the American Jewish Committee was founded by a group of community leaders, including some of the preeminent attorneys and jurists of the day. We honor their proud legacy. We thank those distinguished attorneys and others who are with us today and who made this evening possible. First and foremost, thank you to Bruce Raymer and to Ken Zifrin for your exemplary leadership in sharing the Learning Award. Thank you as well to Chris Burton and Steve Grossman of O'Melveny and Myers. Yes. There have been true partners with AJC's own Marla Abraham and Janice Pittler. To the entire, yes, they deserve a round of applause too. To the entire staff of AJC Los Angeles and our leadership led by Dean Schramm and our colleagues at O'Melveny, thank you all. We also express our thanks to the members of the Tribute Committee whose generosity enables AJC to serve as the premier global Jewish advocacy organization. Last but surely not least, we thank tonight's most worthy honoree, Joe Calabrese. I encourage you to read the many tributes to Joe in the virtual tribute books you have on the flash drives attached to your programs, virtual programming. Saves trees, we love it. Friends, I am proud to share one very special tribute message that AJC received in Joe's honor, and we're not allowed to print it in the book, but if you'll bear with me another moment, it's an important message from a very important leader. I send greetings to all those attending AJC Los Angeles' 34th Annual Learned Hand Dinner and honoring Joseph A. Calabrese. Guided by faith and tradition, the Jewish American community has opened our eyes to injustice and people in need since our founding our nation's earliest days. By promoting the well-being of others and advancing democracy around the world, groups like yours strive for the better future we know is possible. I wish you all the best for a memorable evening. Sincerely, Barack Obama, the White House. Joe, you embody the spirit of the Learned Hand Award. You are a preeminent attorney. You are a devoted civic leader. You have earned your bar mitzvah. We are deeply proud to honor you this evening. It is now my pleasure to invite Joe and Margot and their son AJ to join me, along with Reverend Susan Klein, to join me here for a special blessing over this ginormous challah. We also want to recognize Joe's mother, Anna, who flew in especially for this occasion. This challah in Jewish history. Okay. Yeah, you want to take the knife? Sure. Gather around, please. Joe and Margot, in the presence of your family and friends, colleagues, and community, this is the blessing we share with you. May you have the ability to make your hopes and your dreams come true. May your deeds support righteousness and your goodness serve as an example to others. May you use the many, many blessings in your lives to make our world a better place for all. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We bless the source of life that brings forth bread from the earth. Together we say, Amen. Friends, enjoy your dinner.
Still have it. I mean, I started as a high school teacher, actually, in the south part of Los Angeles and Carson, was a principal at Hamilton High School, and I could quiet down an entire gym of kids. Yeah, there's that like invisible kind of beaming thing, and it's like, that's cool. I haven't done that in about 20 years. Thanks, you guys. That was worth the whole evening. Be able to quiet the room with just the force of my personality and fear of my wife and things like that. Anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed their meal and networking session. This looked like 3-minute dating out here for about it's amazing that we didn't lose a couple servers during the different courses. But glad that you're all back and gathered together. We have some very important people to come up here, and then Joe. But the first person is actually quite an extraordinary individual, and it comes from your homeland, meaning a lawyer. He is really quite an impressive individual and tonight's keynote speaker, and this is the Honorable Alejandro Mayorkas, the United States Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security. Deputy Secretary Mayorkas previously served as Director of the Department of Homeland Security's United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. You must have the coolest card with that title, which operates the largest immigration system in the world. Deputy Secretary Mayorkas oversees 250 offices, 30,000 employees, and is charged with maintaining the integrity of the U.S. immigration system. Before that, Deputy Secretary Mayorkas was a partner at O'Melveny & Myers, where he was recognized by the National Law Journal as one of the 50 most influential minority lawyers in America. So please join me in a warm welcome for tonight's keynote speaker, the Honorable Alejandro Mayorkas.
Thank you. In 1928, a 12-year-old Italian boy landed on the shores of our great country, equipped with a primary education and raw intelligence, keenly perceptive with a strong set of values and a precociously compassionate approach to life, and the gift of United States citizenship. He did not have the opportunity to attend high school and became a manual laborer, a painter, a truck driver, to earn a living. He served in the United States Army from 1939 to 1941 and held a national security protected job as a railroad employee when service to country called again, and he entered the infantry. He was part of the Monte Cassino standoff and the Anzio invasion in Italy, the land of his birth, only to again go offshore for the northern invasion and liberation of France, 2 amphibious landings. He was awarded 2 Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star for his distinguished service. Returning to civilian life, he ultimately purchased a small business, continuing to work with his hands every day until he retired. He and his wife raised 3 children, and though he had no formal education, he insisted that his 3 children attend college. His daughter graduated veterinary school. One son became a very successful publisher and businessman. And his other son is this evening's 2014 recipient of the American Jewish Community. The qualities that Gerard R. Calabrese brought to this country as a young boy from Italy, qualities of the heart and the mind, qualities of character, dignity, and service, carry forward in his son Joe. And Joe Calabrese embodies much more. He captures in his life the power of the immigrant experience in America and the role of education and the law in it. In the 1982 landmark decision of Plyler versus Doe, the United States Supreme Court ruled that undocumented children have a right to a public education. Through that decision, the court recognized that every Doe has a name, is a person, and deserves a future. It is with intent and purpose rooted in the immigrant experience of his father and with a keen and personal understanding of the power of education and the law in building a life for another that Joe Calabrese has invested his heart and his energy in the nonprofit work of the Constitutional Rights Foundation, introducing constitutional principles to the formative education of the youth in our community, including those youth who would otherwise be known only as Doe. The right to and the power of education, combined with the might of the law, brings life to this most basic yearning of the immigrant family in America, the chance to be and the opportunity to become. In his life and through his career, Joe Calabrese has brought life to this yearning. I was first introduced to the American Jewish Committee by a role model of mine and many others, Bruce Raymer. Bruce Raymer and the other distinguished Learned Hand Award recipients who precede Joe this evening have reached the pinnacle of the legal profession while being leaders in the broader civic life of our community and the nation. While the craft of and ethics of lawyering has helped build our work into a profession, in an environment of ever-mounting commercial pressure, we can remind ourselves that the role of the lawyer in the broader community, as a leader of civic engagement and a catalyst of social change, helps define our work as a profession as well. This, too, is why Joe Calabrese continues in the tradition of bringing honor and meaning to the Learned Hand Award, while building and growing the entertainment law practice of O'Melveny and Myers, leading the Century City office to exponential growth and prominence, helping guide the firm worldwide and govern its direction, representing marquee clients around the world, training and mentoring young lawyers. Joe has invested in his community, served the vulnerable and the disenfranchised, and engaged in the highest levels on the national stage. Not a day goes by that Joe does not address a client need, take time to guide a young lawyer, care for the law firm as an institution, contribute to the political life of the city and our nation's capital, invest his energy in a social cause, and live his greatest commitment of all to his family. Joe is a leader, and he has led with his extraordinary wife, Margot, his 2 sons, and with all of us. I do not know whether Gerard Calabrese could ever have imagined when he arrived on the shores of this country that 86 years later, hundreds of distinguished members of our community would be gathered together in the ballroom of the Beverly Wilshire Hotel in Beverly Hills, California, to recognize and honor his son Joe as one of our most distinguished, honorable, and accomplished leaders. But this I do know. The story from the day that Gerard Calabrese arrived on the shores of our nation to the time that his son Joe will hold the Learned Hand Award this evening is a story that captures the meaning of America as a nation of immigrants. I also know that Gerard Calabrese would be, that he is, immensely proud this evening. I am very honored to be here. Joe Calabrese keeps the trajectory of his father's immigrant experience, rising towards greater opportunity for others. He carries forward the noblest and most impactful qualities of our legal profession, and he continues in the tradition of the Learned Hand Award's prior recipients. All of this together means that he dedicates himself in the service of this most profound ethic, to make the world better for the generation that follows us. Thank you all, and most of all, thank you and congratulations to my dear friend, Joe Calabrese, the deserving 2014 recipient of the Learned Hand Award.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary Byorkis. Until tonight, I did not believe that our next guest, actually even existed. When I first met Joe, he constantly waxed on about his dear friend Charlie. He would say, "Well, that's great, Joe. I'd enjoy meeting this gentleman." And he'd say, "Well, you really can't meet him. He just became the ambassador, the United States ambassador. That's it, to France and Monaco." And I'm like, "Yeah, right, sure. Just admit it. Charlie's your invisible friend. It's okay to have that person. There's no problem with that." And then one day, about a year ago, he says, his real friend, Charlie, is finishing his term as ambassador. And I said, great, after years of hearing about him, let's all get together. And he said, oh, I'd love to get together with everybody, but he's moving to Washington, D.C. He's not coming back here. He's to become the Assistant Secretary of State for Economic and Business Affairs under the U.S. Secretary of State, John Kerry. At that point, I listened and I told Joe, it's okay to have an imaginary friend. It helps him cope with the pressures of commuting from his house in Westwood all the way to Century City, sometimes 3 days a week. I get it. It's tough, but he swore to me that this guy's real. And well, I have to tell you, after all these years, I finally met him tonight, and he definitely is real, and I see why Joe counts him as a close friend. With a career that spans public service and over 20 years in the entertainment sector, including serving as president and CEO of the Jim Henson Company and Wild Brain. Here to present tonight's Learned Hand Award, please welcome the Assistant Secretary of State for Economic and Business Affairs, the Honorable Charles Rifkin.
Well, thank you, Jim. I am very proud to be Joe's invisible friend and thrilled to be here tonight. But listen, I'd love to say a few words about Joe, but before I do, please join me in watching this brief presentation about Learned Hand himself, the man who inspired this award and in whose name the AJC has honored so many attorneys over the years. Please.
What do we mean when we say that, first of all, we seek liberty? I often wonder whether we do not rest our hopes too much upon constitutions, upon laws, and upon courts. These are false hopes. Believe me, these are false hopes. Liberty lies in the hearts of men and women. When it dies there, no constitution, no law, no court can save it. No constitution, no law, no court can even do much to help it. What is this liberty that must lie in the hearts of men and women? It is not the ruthlessly unbridled will. It is not the freedom to do as one likes. That is the denial of liberty leads straight to its overthrow. A society in which men recognize no check on their freedom soon becomes a society where freedom is the possession of only a savage few, as we have learned to our sorrow. What then is the spirit of liberty? I cannot define it. I can only tell you my own faith. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which is not too sure that it is right. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which seeks to understand the minds of other men and women. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which weighs their interests alongside its own without bias. The spirit of liberty remembers that not even a sparrow falls to earth unheeded. The spirit of liberty is the divine spirit who, nearly 2,000 years ago, taught mankind that lesson it is never learned, but is never quite forgotten, that there may be a kingdom where the least shall be heard and considered, side by side, with the greatest.
Ladies and gentlemen, my wife Susan, who's here with me tonight, and I are thrilled to be back in Los Angeles and to be here with Margot, with AJ and Ann Calabrese, Joe's friends and colleagues from around the world, and all the leaders, supporters, and friends of the American Jewish Committee who are here tonight to honor him. And I'm excited to participate this evening and feel incredibly fortunate that I've been able to call Joe Calabrese, my closest and dearest friend, for nearly 20 years now. And when I think of Joe, I think of a verse from one of Rudyard Kipling's most famous poems. He observed that if you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, then, Kipling reasoned, yours is the earth and everything in it. Well, Joe is a genuinely kind and decent person who is always looking out for others. In spite of his extraordinary professional success, he always puts others first. It's never about him. It's about his family. It's about his friends. It's about his clients. Joe doesn't aspire to jump in front of the parade or to try to draw attention to himself. Joe Calabrese has literally walked with kings and presidents, statesmen and celebrities. But he's never lost touch with who he is and where he comes from. Now, as Ali just said in such a beautiful speech, Joe's father, Jerry, was only 8 years old when he arrived in the United States. He didn't have the opportunity to go to college or even high school. But he worked hard his entire life and through sheer grit and determination became a successful businessman. He also, as Ali said, was a decorated war hero who stormed the beaches in southern France and fought for our freedom in World War II, but he rarely spoke of it in later years. Joe's mother, Ann, who's here with us tonight, had a high school degree, but like her husband, she didn't have the chance to attend college. And yet, nonetheless, they raised 3 extraordinary children, all who went on to get undergraduate and graduate degrees. Because for Joe Calabrese, the American dream was not just someone else's story, it was his story. And the opportunities he was given through the sacrifices of his parents had a very powerful effect. Joe's often spoken of how he's been motivated in his life by the indignation at seeing injustice. Growing up in Paterson, New Jersey, Joe learned life lessons from his parents on a daily basis. And he noticed that whenever things become difficult for his father, whether it was a bankrupt customer or a city approval needed for a proposed building, he always called a lawyer. And to Joe, that meant one thing. Being a lawyer meant solving other people's problems. So he became a lawyer for all the right reasons. And that perspective exemplifies the spirit of Learned Hand, a brilliant attorney and judge who always believed that when you looked at matters of law, you always had to do so with empathy. You had to have an appreciation of our common humanity. Joe grew up believing that. He also believed deeply in the importance of opportunity, and that's why he went on to become such a strong advocate of education, as you heard Senator Kaine speak about, and creating opportunities for those denied access to education. He's a former board member of Educate the Children Foundation, which is an in-kind charity that provides computers and supplies to needy California schools, public schools. And he and Margot just established a scholarship for first-generation Americans at his law school alma mater, Cornell University. It goes directly to somebody who hasn't had opportunity. It opens doors to new possibilities. That is the very spirit of America. It's the very spirit of Joe. And it's the very spirit, too, of the AJC, which is, above all else, a human rights organization. Now, since 1906, AJC has done and continues to do so much, as we heard tonight, to safeguard and promote the interests and security of Israel and the global Jewish community. And beyond that, it has worked steadfastly to advance human rights and democratic values for all people. As Rabbi Diamond said earlier tonight, in the field of education alone, the AJC defended the right of Catholics to send their children to parochial schools in the 1920s, and he spoke about AJC's role with Brown versus the Board of Education. But these are just 2 of the many examples, and very much in the spirit of Learned Hand, because he saw it as an important moral issue, and used the law to defend and uphold it. So when we look at the work that Joe has done, and continues to do, as an attorney, we can say that he, too, has followed the same principles. By the way, if you look Joe up on Google, you will see news reports that express their admiration in terms of his deal-making prowess. They use phrases like leading lawyer, super lawyer, game-changing lawyer. And those descriptions are right on the money. He's been tremendously successful in so many fields, from simple film production and distribution, to structured financing, to complex licensing transactions. He helped, as I think people here know, AMC Entertainment, Cinemark Holdings, and Regal Entertainment in a $1 billion deal to launch a digital cinema project, projection equipment to nearly 15,000 theater screens across North America. He was referred to by some journalists as one of the biggest, that deal was referred to as one of the biggest media deals of 2010. And on behalf of the International Olympic Committee, Joe recently negotiated a $7.75 billion deal with NBC for Olympic broadcast rights that extend all the way till 2032. Joe has played a leading role in the production and distribution of iconic films like Driving Miss Daisy, When Harry Met Sally, and Blade Runner, and the formation of and the financing and formation of successful television and film companies like Castle Rock Entertainment, the Weinstein Company, and Legendary Pictures. He negotiated complex transactions for sports franchises such as the San Francisco Giants, the San Diego Padres, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Anaheim Ducks. Joe is also credited for handling some of the largest slate film financing deals ever done for private equity and hedge fund clients, like Soros Fund Management and Elliott Management. But ladies and gentlemen, the skill, the innovation, and the brilliance with which he pulled off these and other deals are more than enough to draw our attention and admiration. But his insistence on doing all these things with the care and empathy he has shown to clients and friends, and the genuine commitment he has to solving their problems in compassionate and meaningful ways, that reaches us in a much deeper place. And it is from that deep place that I am so proud and so fortunate to have the honor of calling Joe Calabrese my friend. So tonight, let us show our appreciation for a man who has lived the American dream as it should be lived, and whose life tells us all so much about the right way to live in our work, our dealings with people, and at home with our friends and family. Joe Calabrese, for all of your many accomplishments and all of your contributions to your community and your love of this great nation, it is with enormous pride and honor that I now present you with the 2014 Learned Hand Award. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Calabrese.
Thank you so much. There's a hole on the top of the Learned Hand Award that looks like it's a piggy bank, actually. But for those who haven't yet contributed, I think this is really, we're going to leave this up here for you. I'm going to have to figure out where to put that in my office. Wow. I made one fundamental mistake tonight, which is having people speak before me who are such better public speakers than I'll ever be. So thank you to all of them, and I'll get to you later. There's a certain life as a circle concept of being back here at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel tonight. I arrived here on Election Day 1980, rolled up here in my rental car to interview with Los Angeles law firms based on the good judgment of the now Honorable Robert C. Vanderet, who recruited me at Cornell Law School. I was out here to meet some LA law firms, having had a good but not entirely satisfactory summer at a Wall Street firm in New York. I knew no one. Actually, I knew one person. She was a pastry chef. So I got to know the restaurant world very easily. It's just like, as you heard, my father and my grandparents on my mom's side, and really looking for that immigrant's dream, looking for something else. Things were okay, but I thought they could be better. And Bruce Springsteen has a line, looking for something better than that into which we were born. And so I decided I'd give it a ride, and I'd come out here and see. And when I think about the intervening 33 years and the number of people in this room tonight, it's all from scratch. It's all from the beginning. And it really speaks to a lot of what we heard tonight about Learned Hand, about this organization. It's about inclusiveness. It's about caring less where somebody's from than where they're going. It's Warren Christopher, who was a person I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with. We'd talk about things, and he would talk about how the way to resolve issues is to first talk about what that we agree about before we start talking about our disagreement. And when I think about Learned Hand and the way that he approached the law, the wonderful quotes. I mean, the good thing about speaking last, by the way, is 75% of what I was going to say has already been said. Although I would like the chance to rebut Jim Burke, who's the one who always drags me on these vacations. It keeps me up way past when I want to go to bed. But as Jim points out, that any good storyteller has to take some liberties with the truth. But the concept that I moved out here, and here I am, right? I'm receiving the Learned Hand Award from the American Jewish Committee in Los Angeles, California. I'm an Italian, Roman Catholic born, raised in Paterson, New Jersey, which Bruce Raymer reminds me at every opportunity is an even worse city than Hackensack. Really couldn't speak any more to the inclusive world that I so enjoy here, and really it is like a bar mitzvah. I'm so incredibly gratified. Every table I can talk to people that I've known for so long. It's such a great feeling, and so it all does make sense, right? Italians and Jews, I mean, we're very similar. We have a great commitment to our families. We're seeking to give our children more opportunities than we had. We like to give back to our communities and our congregations. We also believe that food in abundant supply will solve just about any problem. That talking loudly at the dinner table is a symbol of your love for others, and that you're speaking with your hands improves your communication skills, and even if you have to speak with your mouth full, so somebody doesn't face an interruption. So there are a lot of similarities. But Judge Hand was also a fantastic fan of freedom of expression. His cases are legendary. And I do think that really does really inspire my involvement with the Constitutional Rights Foundation, which I want to give a big shout out tonight to so many board members who are here and really got me into the organization early. And the idea that we can have civil discourse and disagree. I mean, the judge had many comments on that freedom of speech is really important, and it's okay to disagree. And I do hope we get to that. And Tim Kaine, who was incredibly generous in his comments tonight, has a pact called Common Ground. And I do hope that everybody really does pay attention to that. I think we've become so polarized in our country, it'd be nice to get us back to common ground. So the most important thing about Judge Hand, who was a complicated guy as far as I can tell, was that he had great quotes. And anyone who's worked with me knows that I'm more proud of the fact that I get quoted by some of my colleagues here and come up. I can only speak in metaphor and simile, and so it's great to receive an award that's named after a person who was great at quotes. So I'll do my best to continue to do that, and I can't thank everyone enough, but I will go through a list of thank yous lest I appear ungracious here. And I think the first one, and I wrote these down because I'm never going to want to forget them. The first one has to go out to the people who spoke before me, to Susan, to Jim, to Charlie and Allie. I didn't believe until tonight that everyone would actually be here, because they're so busy and important people. And particularly the travel schedules that each of them have, and the demands on their time. So thank you for being here, and really for your eloquence. I just am so proud of having you as my dear friends and here tonight. So thank you to all of you. To Bruce and Bruce Raymer and to Ken Ziffrin, who was here earlier tonight, for being the dinner chairs. We've already gotten a shout out for the entire dinner committee who's here. Thank you. And then Chris and Steve. I didn't know you could twist arms that hard. That is really amazing. So next time I have a political event, I'm going to actually lean on you some more, because the amount of arm twisting that was done to get you all here tonight is legendary. Really, to all my clients and colleagues and friends that are here, it'd be weird if you weren't, but it's great that you're here. To have this room, I didn't really expect it. The AJC staff who turned up and really got this all organized, to Marla, to Janice, to Amy in particular, for all the work you did. And I'm really a detail person, by the way, so I know I drove them crazy organizing things. So thank you for that. To my mentors, in past, present, those who actually deny that they're my mentors, because some people don't really want to say that they're my mentors, but I really call out Warren Christopher, who I've mentioned already, Donald Petroni, and who's came here tonight from Santa Ynez, and I really do appreciate that. People who really welcomed me and showed me so many things that I didn't know, including in Don's case how to drink, but we had a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to more. And really, last but not least, to my family. My mom, who, as you've heard already, is 94, had a hip replacement 6 months ago, and came out on her own. As you've all heard tonight, and Allie did it so eloquently that I teared up. But this dad that I had, that was just a remarkable fellow. I mean, just one of the most humble people I met, but with no book learning, but somehow wisdom that I still marvel at. So I wish he were here. He passed away about 4 years ago. To my boys, AJ is here tonight. My two intelligent and handsome and talented kids, and I'm really pleased to have AJ here tonight. Justin's back in Washington working for Charlie at the State Department. He wouldn't give him the night off, so. And last but not least, to my inspiration, my best friend and my wife of 27 years, Margot. That's why you're actually all here. I know that, but I am still putting up with it. But really, Margot's responsible for anything that went well tonight. She's not responsible for this speech, but she's responsible for everything else good about it. So thank you again for being here. It really means the world to me, and I hope you had a good evening. Good.
On behalf of American Jewish Committee, AJC Los Angeles thanks you for joining us this evening. Good night.